Hi guys, welcome to this Ymir tutorial video. In today's video I'm going to be talking about how you can go from a gift economy to a bartering or fair exchange economy in Ymir. In my opinion, and I'm sure many Ymir players would agree, this is the biggest step up and the biggest transition in the game. Yeah, you go from era to era, so for example the Copper Age to the Bronze Age, all of that, but from a gift economy to the fair exchange economy is very, very different, and it can throw a lot of players off. In fact, on my first few attempts, I lost every single time to revolt or to going in debt because I didn't know how it worked. So yeah, in this video, I'm going to cover how you can start the fair exchange economy knowing with a bit of security that you're not going to go in debt or going to lose. Also some tips on how you can use it to your benefit and when's the best time to start. So, I've loaded up a single player save I'm currently playing just for a bit of fun, just to see how I'm doing now. I've got a bit more experience in the game, and I've just hit the point where I've unlocked bartering. I've also just unlocked metallurgy, so I've got copper. I haven't started mining it yet, but I could start doing it. I've got a territory close to me where I could start. So, the first thing I want to talk about, what is the difference between bartering and a gift economy? So what we first need to understand is a gift economy is an economy where people give each other what they need. You work a job, let's say you're a hunter collecting meat and leather from animals you kill, and you'll happily give that up, and then the farmers who make carrots or apples will happily give that up, and they just simply put it into a stockpile and everybody takes what they want. The problem with this is as your tribe grows bigger, it gets harder to keep this up and trust that people aren't taking more than they deserve or people aren't taking too much. It just gets a lot harder and it's quite inefficient. It works until you've got too many people. As you can see here, I've got 484 porcos. So it's getting to a point where my conflict is really, really high, 66 conflict, and it's increasing. If I go up any longer in the gift economy, I will simply revolt. And this is the main problem people come to. They can't grow any bigger, or they don't realise they can't grow any bigger, and a revolt occurs and they lose. That's what a gift economy is. Where a bartering economy differs is people put a value to the produce they make. Somebody may make carrots. They put a value of 2 carrots is worth 1 leather cloves, so happily trade that. That is why it's a more efficient system, because people can trade what they produce, and therefore nobody feels like they're cheated because they got what they gave in. So how they differ in game, the game stats, is if you come up here to government and you go to economy, you can now see the policy. So I've got gift economy. You can see gift economy, 200% population conflict, less population stress, but less building efficiency. How bartering differs from gift economy is bartering has huge efficiency bonuses and boosts. So gift economy gives you a minus 20% building inefficiency. Fair exchange gives you a plus 20%, so you get a plus 40% building efficiency, which means every single production building, so whether that's farms or hunters or clay buildings, they will make more goods. So you can think of that as a 40% increase in your nation's wealth. So you come up to score 263, so it would be a 40% increase of that. So that already is massive production values. The other difference, which is the biggest one, is money now becomes a thing. Because goods now have value, money becomes a thing that is the median for exchange of goods. But what you need to know is that once you switch to the bartering economy, you unlock money and you must pay taxes. You must pay maintenance fees to your militaries, to structures, that sort of thing. So that's the next one I'm going to be moving on to. As soon as you unlock bartering, all these buildings, such as the library, 5 upkeep coins, Elder Circle 1, Tribal Council 2, you're now going to have to start paying for these maintenances. Also, if you come to your formations, your militias, 1 coin for my 3 Javelineers, and 23 coins for my army. So you have to start paying maintenance for your troops as well. And this is where the fees start to add up and add up and add up. And you can easily go into crippling debt because you're suddenly paying for all these all these things that weren't costing any money before. Another big example is military. Palisade walls, 0.15 coins per wall. So if you've built a huge wooden fort that looks great and covers a large area, you're still going to have to pay a lot of money to upkeep that. How you balance this though is through privileges. So if we come up here to government, well, yeah, once you're in government, you've come to power, and we've got a new one called privileges. Privileges adds population conflict, so that's not good, but that's offset by the huge drop in conflicts you get from unlocking the bartering. So how privileges work is, in your capital and only your capital, a percentage of the wealth generated is given to your leader, and what you can do is then distribute that wealth from your leader back into the economy. So you'll see, actually, obviously I haven't got it unlocked here, where there'll be one called leader, and that will give you a nice chunk of money, and in fact at first that'll be your only source of income. So on privileges, I'm going to unlock, you want to put leader's treasury contribution at between 90% to 98%, I think is the highest it will go. You want to really be giving away all the money the leader gets, because as long as your leader has more money, so come here, this is the leader. So the leader at the moment has the same amount of wealth as everyone else, but as long as your leader has more wealth than everyone else, you're okay. So you want to go to add, and you want to put this at the full 25%. So you're going to take 25% of the wealth in your capital, and then you want to give back 98%. But we will get more conflict from this, and it does cost us 5 coins and 5 state power, but it generates you a lot more than 5 coins when you've got a better capital. So on this point, another tip I'll give you now is try and develop your capital to be your economic powerhouse. That doesn't necessarily mean it produces the most wealth. See here, total territory wealth. But you want to have the highest GDP. So, for example, let's say you're making, I don't know, you're in the corporation, you're making axes. The actual production of axes doesn't give you that much wealth, but the value with axes is lots. So your leader will take a big chunk of that, the money generated, and you'll get a lot more from the privileges. So now I'm going to move on to the benefit of fair exchange. I've already said some. You have a drop in conflict. That means you can grow your cities to be much, much larger, so you fulfill more jobs, you collect more taxes later on, but you fulfill more jobs, you produce more wealth. It also means you can build bigger armies. Another benefit is the introduction of money. It allows better trade with players. Beforehand, if you're playing on a multiplayer server, to trade with players, you will just have to exchange, for example, maybe flint with wood. Now you can actually send people unique payments of money and then get resources. So if you want to do that, that can be a good early way system of trading with your neighbours. So the big point, and the one that throws a lot of people off, is when to change to fair exchange. What I'd recommend is getting the sweet spot of GDP, and this is really where you'll gain experience on, like, just from playing. You'll get to a point where you know where to do this, and it changes from multiplayer server to multiplayer server because you have different starting territories, different rates of tech, blah 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 blah. But you want to try and develop your GDP as much as possible, but you don't want to spend too long in gift economy. Like I said before, the gift economy means you get worse building efficiency, and you can't have as big cities. However, once you unlock fair exchange, you have to pay for everything. If you want tools, you have to pay for tools. You have to pay for the new armies. So all these things where, let's say here, housing, you want to build a new house, we simply take 2 hammers, 2 leather, 2 wood, and 1 stone out of the communal stockpile, and we build a new house. Once fair exchange is implemented, you have to pay as the government for each and every resource. So now there's a price to building new buildings, there's a price to employing armies, there's a price to absolutely everything. So it can really slow development down. If you've immediately unlocked bartering, but you've still got a lot of new houses to build, you want to employ armies, in the short term, it will cost you a lot of money. So what I'd recommend is, you can look at your GDP, and at the moment my GDP is about 400, it's 360 in this town, but if we go to economy, it's 420 as a nation. It's a little bit too low. If you really, really wanted to rush it and you know what you're doing, you can easily switch to bartering now. but you want to maybe hit between 700 and 1,000 GDP, or at least once you start developing copper and start making metal tools like copper axes, you probably want to switch. Think of it like this: you want to try and build as much as possible now. That would cost you a lot of money. So if you've got a lot of houses you really need to desperately build them now. If you want to employ a large amount of javelineers, let's say, build them now so you can build them for free and then switch to the bartering economy. So finally, the last thing I want to talk about in this video is the difference between merchants and stalls. So I'm actually going to, even though I'm not in a position where I really should switch, I'm going to switch to a bartering economy now. Yeah, we're going to policies, economy, and then switching to fair exchange. You can actually see I'm in crippling budget balance. So I'm only doing it for this video, and I'll probably switch back afterwards, but I want to show you the difference. Once you switch, all your buildings will now have these little market stalls. When you build new buildings though, they won't start with these market stalls, so you'll need to think about building them if you want to do that. Buildings that don't have market stalls are buildings that produce goods that normal porcos wouldn't buy. Clay. Normal porcos wouldn't buy clay, it's bought by industries. Another example is javelins. Normal porcos don't buy javelins, you as the state buy javelins. So buildings that supply goods for industries or supply goods for the state don't come with stalls and don't need stalls, you just buy them directly. But everything else that produces consumer goods or produces food, all of that will come with these market stalls. How stalls work is it uses up a chunk of the building's workforce to sell goods. So what that means is where usually, let's say, this farm would have its annexes that take up a proportion of the workforce and generate more food, the stall acts as an annex almost that doesn't produce anything, it simply supplies the goods that the building produces. So now if we come to resources, and let's say carrots, we can see we produce 11.5 carrots, but only 9.3 are supplied. And so we're going up 2.2. We're above our maintained stock, so you can see that it's not due to that. That is because there'll be some farms that I've got where I'm producing, here we go, both carrots and apples, but you can only sell one type of good. So that's one thing about the market stalls, you can only sell one type of good. But if you've got farms that are producing multiple goods, it will only sell one type. Also, market stalls use up a proportion of the workforce, so they're inefficient. So they're the two main things about market stalls. They can only sell one type of good, and they're inefficient as they use up a proportion of the workforce. Merchants, on the other hand, is a production building, down here, merchant, that when you build it, it takes one worker who is a intermediary for the sales or exchange of goods. So you have the producer, the farmer, he makes all the apples, and then you have the consumer, the porcos who want to buy apples. The merchant is somebody in between who actually sells the apples. So he takes a cut of the profits, but he can sell a much larger volume of apples. So in the long run, this actually is much more efficient. Because let's say we have these 3 farms all making apples, they no longer have a stall, so they can produce more apples, so actually they make more money, the merchant makes money because he's selling the apples, and the consumers get more apples so your population can grow. So even though merchants take a job, and they do take resources to build, they're certainly worth it if you've got the job space. But early on, when you just switch, even now, you can see that these are only at 82% usage, even with a market stand. This is because, like I said before, we've had the increase in productivity from switching from a gift to a bartering economy. So as soon as you switch, you want to try and max out all your farms and all your cattle farms and all of that to meet the new 100% output. Then once you've got some free jobs, start putting merchants down and sell those goods. So another thing about merchants, so I'm going to build one now, is it introduces and works on the market supply I just touched on. So if I build a merchant here, wait for that to build. Okay, so I've had my merchant build. I'm going to set this to critical because now the porcos don't just come to the granary and take out apples they want. They have to spend the money on apples. And we can actually now see all our resources have a base price. And I can do another video on this to explain even more, because this is quite detailed and it may take a while for you to fully understand. But everything's now got a price, and there's a base price, and that is what it's applied at the moment. So everything will all the apples cost 1.4 coins. But we've now got our merchant in place. I'm going to assign some goods, and you can see the only goods here are consumer goods. So you can't, like I said before, for example, some javelins on the market. So let's say apples. I'm now going to go to all my farms, and I'm actually right click here, buildings, and I'm going to delete all the stalls for all my farms. Not my fish just yet, but just all the stalls for all my farms. So what we'll see is actually it's dropped now into the red. So it was at 82% usage before. Now it's dropped even further down to 66. And what I do is I build even more farms, farm annexes for carrots or apples or whatever I wanted to produce. And I'd come over here and I'm now selling apples. So you can see each merchant has 7 stocks. They can't sell more than 7 goods. And we come over here to apples. My demand for goods is 18, but I'm only supplying 7. So market stalls supply all their good. Merchants can only supply up to 7. But the market stalls use up usage. And you can see now here, these guys produce carrots, but I'm not selling carrots on the market. So these guys aren't making any money. These guys aren't making any money, and so this building is now unprofitable. So these workers will find somewhere else to work. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to set both of these to sell apples, with both of them on critical, because now this is supplying the apples. I've got them both on 7. But what you'll find is that at some points, you don't want to supply 7. Because if we come down here, we look at apples, there's 14 supply and 15 demand. Because we haven't actually unlocked policies that change the dynamic pricing of goods, this hasn't unlocked yet. But what you'll find later on in the game is, if you undersupply a good, the price goes up. If you oversupply a good, all those goods oversupplied go to waste, they're just destroyed, and the price goes down because you're oversupplying. So you don't want to oversupply goods. If you find you are oversupplying a good, you come to the merchant, click limited distribution, and drag the slider to the point where actually you're just matching demand. But sometimes you do want to oversupply goods so you can lower the price and sell it on the market, but that's a bit higher level that you can learn a bit later on. So now we're supplying 14 goods and our demand's 15, so we're just slightly under our demand for apples. But I haven't done it, but if you wanted to, or not if you wanted to, you should go to all your farms and you'd fulfill this new workforce we've got, and you'd see your wealth skyrocket because you've got so much more capacity in your jobs, and you'd also see your population rise as you're producing a lot more food. So here I'm going to go do the same, critical. As it is our food supply, I want it to be critical. And I'm going to sell carrots, which is my other food source. So 7 there, and 7 here. So you can see 7 instantly. But we're only producing 11. So again, we're supplying 14, we only produce 11, but that's because we've got storage, so we can eat out of our storage. But once our storage runs out, we will just supply at 11.5. So that's quite a long video, but there's quite a lot to cover. This is really important. This is quite a basic version. If you guys wanted more, I could go a bit further into detail of how all the market supply works. I've already done a rough video a while ago, but even that, there's improvements that need to be made. But it gives you a rough idea of how things work. Some other tips I can give of switching over is, now to produce money, you want to fulfill consumer goods such as leather clothes, pottery. You want to make sure you understand how the supply works. So actually we can see now we're oversupplying carrots, so those 3 carrots above our 11 are going to waste, so we need to come here and just move that down. There we go. Workers now earn money, so buildings that don't produce anything, like these farms didn't earlier, they have a flashing coin saying that the building's unprofitable. But yeah, been quite a long video. There's a lot to talk about. All you need to understand is what the difference is between the market stalls and the merchants, and making sure that you can sort of balance that right. Like for example, these fish, if I was to take the market stall off, they'd still be at 100%, and I could sell them at a merchant. So I hope this video has been useful to at least somebody. Again, if this is your first time getting to this period in the game, this will seem quite complicated and you may not understand what you're doing. You may lose a few times like I did, of just dying to revolt or going in debt and just restarting, whatever. But if you need to rewatch the video or you want to check out some of my other works, please do, as once you've overcome this hurdle, the game gets much better, and you've now reached a point in the game where the game's gone from being a basic city builder to actually more of one of the most realistic economic simulations I've found. So I hope you've enjoyed the video. If you did, leave it a like and subscribe to the channel for more content. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.